Greetings and welcome to this edition of Faith to Live By. I'm Pam Christian, your researcher, writer, producer, and host of the show, where I seek to help us explore current events from a biblical and prophetic perspective so we, as God's people, can know how He wants us to respond. And this week, based on the increased intensity in both world events and prophecies from God, we have every reason to jump in and be engaged as never before. You've no doubt noticed world events have greatly intensified, and God's prophecies have been greatly increased. That's because God has declared this is the time for the evil He has been exposing to be held accountable and judged. Evil is in chaos in this present atmosphere. All the prophets are pointing to this time being the time of accountability and judgment. Pastor and prophet Hank Kuhneman shared on Elijah Streams recently how he was at 3 different events, and the focus of the Holy Spirit at each one pronounced this time we are in now as the time when we will see God's hand move on behalf of His people. On July 27th, Hank shared about his recent prophetic downloads from the Lord, which you'll want to hear and receive his prayer of impartation. Use the link in the show notes to hear his message titled, God is Hearing the Cry of the Oppressed. I also want you to be sure you listen to this entire podcast. First, because as I often do, I'm bringing you historical perspectives so we can better understand and more effectively pray for the outcomes of current events. Second, because the specific prophecies of recent days all consistently indicate we have finally entered the time when we will see God's will done on earth as it is in heaven. The time of accountability, judgment, and reward is upon us. Praise God, hallelujah, and amen. World events, especially this past decade, have been unprecedented. We have never seen the level of corruption that's been exposed, nor have we experienced the level of oppressive, evil tyranny before. I think every person has been forced to consider our natural world is not all there is. From the Bible and in our natural life experience, we learn there are both good and evil spirits that operate among our earthly existence. We also learn each human being is created with a body, soul, and spirit. The Bible also reveals all spirits are eternal and have free will, able to choose to be aligned with God and all that is good, or Satan and all that will lead to destruction. Different spirits have different abilities, assignments, or purposes, and when there is unity of spirits, good or bad, their collective or common purpose increases in power. What we've been seeing in Iran is the unity of human spirits influenced by the Prince of Persia, the spirit over Iran, but what I've noticed is another kind of spirit born of a corporate desire, and I'll call that the spirit of the American Revolution. Originally, this spirit lived in people mostly of European descent wanting to break away from the oppressive, tyrannical rule of King George II and flee to a land where they would be free to worship God and live in all the freedoms that are God-given. This makes me think of the Exodus and how God stirred up in the hearts of His people the desire to break free from the oppressive, tyrannical Pharaoh of Egypt. God specifically told Moses to demand of Pharaoh that he let his people go to be free to worship God. This Exodus spirit of wanting to be free to worship God has been increasing in our world. God has repeatedly told His people He is going to liberate His people worldwide with what He has called the greater Exodus. And not only will all God's people in the world be free to worship Him, we will also see great signs and wonders as His glory is evident everywhere. Can't you feel it? Can't you sense our release is very close? It must have been the spirit of the Exodus that welled up in the men and women of America's 13 original colonies that developed into the spirit of the American Revolution. And this year, in the 250th anniversary of America's independence, with all that's been occurring globally, I sense the spirit of the American Revolution rising in undeniable ways worldwide. While the globalists try as hard as they can to gain authority and power over the nations, the spirit of resistance and desire for God and to live in his freedoms is increased. As I shared last week, and has always been the case, in the very face of persecution, the Christian faith increases. Think about it. The harder the enemy tries to defeat God's people, the more we increase in strength of faith and in numbers. This is evidence the enemy will never prevail. Truly, God's vengeance is sweet. What's happening in Iran and in Canada are just two examples we'll be considering today. But I say the same revolutionary spirit is evident all throughout Europe, in Asia, Oceania, and all around the world. There is evidence of people anxious to be freed from evil oppression and released into truth and freedom. We are living in and are actually part of the ancient battle of good and evil, and depending upon how we are engaged, either good or evil will advance. Each of us alive today has a very important role to play in world events, from both a spiritual and a natural involvement. If you are anxious about world events, as most of us are today, then I ask you to consider what I bring in explanation with this podcast, and to decide what part you will play in the outcome of it all. God has given his people everything we need to experience victory over evil through Jesus Christ. But the only way we will actually experience victory is if we get involved, if we appropriate God's provision. When good people do nothing, evil advances. The only way evil is overcome is by the applied efforts of God's people. As God has revealed, it's the evil, willful desire and efforts of Satan to establish an antichrist one world order. And he will accomplish that one day, but this is not the day. Satan has worked hard to advance his evil kingdom many times in history, wanting to get ahead of God's timeline, and each and every time God has drawn the line and declared, "Not yet." These evil days we are living in is another one of those times when God has emphatically declared, "Not yet." Through prophet Robin D. Bullock, God has revealed he will once again help his people get out of the mess we've gotten ourselves into. God also warned us to never let it get to this state again, with the somber warning that our failure to advance his kingdom will, to oppress evil, will mean we will again find ourselves subject to the same oppressive tyranny in 2030 that we experienced in 2020. This is what we are living in. A time the fight against evil is the highest we've ever experienced in our lifetimes. It is also a time of great promise for victory such as the world has never seen. Globalism is a system of oppression that is entirely inspired by the enemy of God. It is a godless system that makes class distinctions among human beings, with its greatest expression in communism. Nationalism is a system of freedoms recognized as from God, including a strong national pride, keeping a country's own culture, identity, and government independent from outside global control. With today's podcast, I want to help us see how these two different systems are actually at war today worldwide, and how President Trump is fighting to make sure America remains the sovereign nation our founding fathers envisioned, and for which the brave soldiers of the American Revolution gave their lives for, while at the same time encouraging other nations of the world to protect their own sovereignty and freedoms. The spirit of the American Revolution that fought to become free people under God is the same spirit that is raised up today and fighting against the evil, tyrannical spirit of globalism. So, with all of this as the foundation, today I want to provide background regarding the expansion of globalism and why it is associated with what's called the British Empire. I want to explain the difference between a globalist economy of free trade and the American Hamiltonian economic system. I want to provide background about the globalists' reach in the Middle East and why Iran, which is ancient Persia, is an essential battleground in this overall global war. And lastly, prophetic promises we have from God of great hope in our future. I want us to realize how President Trump is actually opposing globalism for the sake of restoring America to be its own sovereign nation, also providing a pattern for all other nations that want to follow suit. He is working to reestablish America in terms of industrialization and manufacturing, enhancing balanced trade, and to regain the American Hamiltonian system of economics while re-emphasizing all the freedoms our founding fathers intended the citizens of the United States to enjoy. Again, I truly believe what we are actually experiencing today is yet another essential demonstration of the spirit of the American Revolution, to regain the God-given freedoms that have been incrementally stolen from us. The same oppressive evil spirit that fueled religious persecution of Puritans, Pilgrims, and Catholics by the Church of England and exhibited harsh autocratic royal rule with a military focus in the 1700s that caused people to flee to America has been working in our world through the globalists to this day. The term British Empire has become synonymous with globalism, which I want to better explain. During the reign of Britain's King George II, the nation saw a massive global imperial expansion, such as in India and Canada, primarily driven by strategic rivalries with France. Under King George III, who was the longest reigning king in British history, the United Kingdom was established and the American Revolutionary War was fought, defeating Great Britain. From the perspective that everything that happens in our natural world is directed by the spiritual world, a look at history reveals the ancient evil spirits influencing Great Britain's quest for global dominance has never ceased to operate. The Bible reveals all evil has in fact been defeated. The war against evil has been won through Jesus Christ. Yet there remains some final battles until the final visible removal of evil is accomplished at Christ's return. The trend toward globalism through economic control can be traced back to the national banks founded by Mayer Amschel Rothschild and his 5 sons, and they're amassing a private banking network across London, Paris, Vienna, Berlin, and Naples, financing governments and major infrastructure. I've covered this in more detail with my podcast episodes 157 and 244. The Bank of London is recognized as the mother of all central banks, and in fact, from the mile square area known as the City of London in Britain, the economic headquarters of globalism was established, and the British Empire expanded both in geography and power and control. While the historical British Empire was the largest global empire in history, spanning from the late 16th century to the late 20th century, that at its peak in 1913 governed over 412 million people, which was about 23% of the world's population, covering roughly 24% of the Earth's total land area, it is considered to have failed because of economic devastation resulting from World Wars I and II. This historical British Empire gradually gave way to the Commonwealth of Nations, of which Canada and India belong, along with 54 other countries today. I mention that because Canada and India have been prominent in the news for reasons we need to explore. Even though the historical British Empire failed, the spirit of globalism did not. In addition to the economic headquarters from the mile square area known as the City of London, the globalists established the Vatican as the religious arm of their system, and after World War II, established Washington, D.C. as the military arm. This is why America has had such a tremendous role with NATO as the military power for the world as influenced by the globalists. Expanding the British Empire in this globalist manner allowed it to continue to gain more followers from within the leadership of various world governments. Those attracted to money and power as self-appointed elite enjoying a protected status and being part of the world leaders who actually instigate civil and regional wars, often where religious tensions already existed, then funding both sides of the war, meaning they continued to amass great wealth and power. So, the term British Empire referenced today is not the historical British Empire, but the spirit of that empire. It refers to an enduring, shadow-based global power structure that has grown out of a financial and geopolitical force driving modern globalism that opposes national sovereignty and acts as the primary adversary to American system economics, with its origin in none other than Babylon. The existence and agenda of the globalists through to this very day, have been made known through what is called the British Empire, also called the Deep State. King Charles has been a leader among the globalists whose plans, strategy, and agenda can be known from their published booklet titled Agenda 2030. The year 2030 was the point in time when they believed they would have achieved their global goals, and you can read a copy of Agenda 2030 online through the official United Nations platforms. You'll find a link in my show notes. It should be somewhat chilling for you to recall through Robin D. Bullock, God has warned his people about having things in proper order by the year 2030. There are many established organizations that represent nations and great amounts of wealth in the world where the people involved promote the globalists' agenda. For example, the United Nations, NATO, Interpol, the World Health Organization. Another example includes foreign policy think tanks such as the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, Chatham House, and the Atlantic Council. Also, international economic and governance bodies, such as the International Monetary Fund, European Central Bank, Organization for Economic and Cooperation and Development, and the World Economic Forum that is funded by roughly 1,000 top global companies such as BlackRock and JP Morgan Chase, Microsoft, and Google. There is also the Bilderberg Group and the Bohemian Club. There are philanthropic foundations such as Open Society Foundations, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and there are corporate and private intelligence links such as the Big Three management consultancies and private intelligence and tech firms like Palantir Technologies and, again, Google. You can see from this list of examples, the spirit of the globalists is extremely pervasive. The three main core principles the globalists share are multilateralism, solving major challenges through joint international agreements rather than unilateral national action; economic interdependence, promoting open borders, free trade, and reduced tariffs to connect global markets; shared governance, supporting transitional institutions to coordinate policy on issues like climate, health, and finance. While these commonalities may sound noble on the surface, the underlying premise is based in godlessness, believing man is the highest authority, with those who are among the most wealthy, who control the world's wealth, as self-determined elite who are to rule over the masses. Again, think communism. What is one of the lines Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum is most famous for? Right. You will own nothing, but you will be happy. I find it highly noteworthy that in this year of America's 250th anniversary of independence from Britain, we again, along with the whole world, need to demonstrate our American resolve to be free to worship the one true God, with risky and fateful choices and acts of daring and heroism that characterized the original American Revolution, freeing people from the globalist British Empire's tyranny. What President Donald Trump is doing is what no other president before him has been able to do because those who tried were assassinated. And what he's trying to do is to break us away from any and all systems that prevent us from living in freedom, the very same freedoms established in our United States Constitution, the very same freedoms men fought and gave their lives for, so future generations could be free. The hope before us today is like none our nation has seen for over 100 years. The freedoms President Trump is fighting for demonstrates the same spirit of the original American Revolution, breaking free from the oppressive British Empire so that we can be free to worship God, consistent with the rights and freedoms that the God of the Judeo-Christian faith established. And because this is the focus, all those entities who oppose the God of the Bible, both Old and New Testament, are fighting against us with all their might. As I've said, we are living the natural manifestations of the spiritual reality of a war between good and evil. However, we have the distinct and undeniable advantage because Jesus Christ has already completely defeated the enemy. The war has already been won. We are just appropriating that victory as we fight the final battles. If you listened last week, then you know I explained how the globalist economic system is highly oppressive in contrast to the American system. I shared the globalists, who consist of self-appointed elite, have reduced God to a static designer, enforcing environmental limits and maintaining an agrarian or feudal world order of a decentralized socio-political and economic system, most prominently found in medieval Europe, where power, land, and government protection are exchanged for loyalty, labor, and taxes. The globalists believe the people of the world are to be owned and managed by them for the purposes of their power, wealth, and control. In contrast, the Hamiltonian American economic system, established by our founding fathers, is aligned with Judeo-Christian theology, recognizing God created man in his image, with the divine capacity for reason, discovery, and scientific advancement, intended to live in freedom as fully expressed in the Bible. I also prepared a PDF for you that allows you to quickly see the advantages of the American Hamiltonian economic system over a capitalism free market system. The link to the PDF is available again this week. The British Empire is actually the driving force that established the IRGC in 1979, which I have also covered in past podcasts. To add to what I've covered before, the British involvement in Iran before 1979 centered on imperial rivalry, oil control, and strategic alignments with nations. This was defined heavily by the 1953 joint coup and close ties to the Shah of Iran. Britain also competed with the Tsarist Russia, which was the historical period when Russia was ruled by their monarch, for influence in Persia through the 19th and 20th centuries. In 1901, Britain secured exclusive petroleum rights, leading to the creation of the Anglo-Persian Oil Company, later the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, then British Petroleum, and ultimately BP. British forces occupied parts of Iran during both World War I and World War II, alongside Soviet troops, to protect vital oil supplies and supply routes. Britain was responsible for the establishment, support, and expansion of the radical Muslim Brotherhood, and in effect, Britain has used Iran as its proxies to generate forever wars, because funding both sides of the wars was one of their preferred ways to oversee population control and to continue to amass power and control and wealth. The more we understand about history, the better we can understand current day events. The British Empire, who essentially established the IRGC, which I've explained in previous podcasts, is not only being exposed, but they are being reduced and judged, as God works through his appointed people to restrain evil and advance his kingdom. In keeping with the topic of Iran's involvement, I want you to first hear the entire speech given by Senator Tim Sheehy regarding Iran's IRGC as a death cult based not only on long-standing public history, but his personal history.
The senator from Montana.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday we saw the President of the United States and many others at Dover Air Force Base presiding over a ceremony that is very sacred to those of us who served, and that is a dignified return of remains from the war zone. And that process happens beginning in the war zone through Dover to the hometown of our fallen heroes. I participated in many of those ceremonies myself, to include carrying friends of mine off the plane. One of those is on this bracelet. He was cut in half by an Iranian EFP. This regime that we are fighting does not care about our partisan politics. They don't care who you voted for, who you pray to, or where you live. They want to kill all of us. And they don't just say it, they actually do it. And they've been doing it for 47 years. This is a war of choice. The Democrats are correct. It's a war of choice that was begun by a radical, lunatic band of terrorists that took over a beautiful nation 47 years ago, took it over with brutality, force, and savagery. And the second they took it over, they didn't free their people. They didn't unleash the largest oil reserves in the world to build schools and bridges. They took it over to murder their own people and to spread their disgusting ideology across the world, and that is exactly what they have been doing. They don't just say it and talk about it. You don't have to believe what they say. You can simply watch what they've done. They have attacked families, women, children, innocent people. They don't just attack them and kill them. They rape them. They skin them alive on camera. They celebrate it. They honor those people who do disgusting things that we would put in jail for the rest of their lives in this country. And they do it for fun, and they pay them money to do it, and they're heroes to that nation. They've done it to friends of mine. They've done it to families who've been in this chamber. And the fact that we sit here and listen to elected officials of this country defend these lunatics who want us all dead. They want all of you dead. They want all of us dead. They don't want us to disappear with the snap of a finger. They want us to be raped, burned alive, and cut into pieces. Watch the video from October 7th. That's what they want to happen from Maine to San Diego, from Seattle to Miami. They want this country turned into a burning husk of its former self. And you don't have to theorize that. That's what they do. From the 1983 barracks bombing, where 280 Marines were vaporized in a morning, from USS Cole to the Achille Laurel to every terrorist attack, from the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas. These are not humanitarian freedom organizations. They are death-dealing cults, and they want all of us to die brutal deaths. William Buckley was abducted in 1985, an American military officer. He was skinned alive on camera by the Iranians. American prisoners of war who were captured. They were never called prisoners of war because they were captured by lunatic terrorists, so they were not subject to the Geneva Convention. They were captured and murdered, power drills through their brains. This is in Iraq. These are families that have dealt with this, and they've never gotten a single dime. These families have never gotten restitution, and not a single president has ever stood up to them. Love Donald Trump or hate him. Love his policies, hate ICE, love ICE, whatever. There's never been a single president who has stood up to Iran and hit back. For 47 years, our troops and our families have been absorbing attack after attack after attack all over the world. And their radical ideology does not stop at the Persian Gulf. It doesn't stop at Tel Aviv. They want to do this everywhere. It's a global radical ideology. And we've been fighting it for half a century. We didn't start this war. We did not, but we will finish it. And forever wars are not popular with anybody these days. Both sides of that, I love to attack our forever wars. And I can promise you, being someone overseas wearing the uniform, when you're fighting for your country, you don't care what party's in office, but you're fighting to defend your country. And you turn on the news and see your elected officials stabbing you in the back, telling you that you're failing, that you've failed every goal of the war, is what I just heard. Last time I checked, we've wiped these bastards out. An occasional missile strike and boats in the straits, that's not military strength. Those are the flailings of a failing empire. Those are the flailings of a nation in collapse because they deserve it. So I encourage our colleagues on both sides of the aisle, whatever's politically convenient, whatever plays well on Twitter or Facebook, think about the people who are deployed right now, standing on that wall with a loaded weapon, who have volunteered to defend our country and our way of life. Because they are there defending us in a just war. Because we did not start a war with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. They started it with us 47 years ago, and their attacks have gone unanswered for half a century. It's time to fix this problem and make sure another generation of Americans does not have to fight this murderous, savage adversary. Thank you, Mr. President.
Now, to add context, I want to play only the first portion of Barbara Boyd's recent video, also addressing the IRGC as a death cult extension of the British Empire, who gained control and power by limiting industrial development, including nuclear power plants, limiting population control in part through narco-terrorism, insisting on environmental demands such as Mark Carney's net zero program, and wielding power through its religious terrorism. Here's Barbara Boyd, in her own words, first playing a portion of Senator Sheehy's speech I just played for you, and then explaining how Iran is interconnected with the British Empire and Mark Carney of Canada.
Senator Tim Sheehy, in a speech this week, called Iran's IRGC a death cult. The same is true of their financial sponsors in the City of London. Let's listen first to Senator Sheehy.
These are not humanitarian freedom organizations. They are death-dealing cults, and they want all of us to die brutal deaths. William Buckley was abducted in 1985, an American military officer. He was skinned alive on camera by the Iranians. American prisoners of war who were captured. They were never called prisoners of war because they were captured by lunatic terrorists, so they were not subject to the Geneva Convention. They were captured and murdered, power drills through their brains. This is in Iraq. These are families that have dealt with this, and they've never gotten a single dime. These families have never gotten restitution, and not a single president has ever stood up to them. Love Donald Trump or hate him. Love his policies, hate ICE, love ICE, whatever. There's never been a single president who has stood up to Iran and hit back.
That death cult description fits the diseased globalist culture centered in the City of London, in which the IRGC has functioned as a deployable terrorism asset for 47 years. That larger cult uses narco-terrorism and Iran's religious terrorism as a weapon of war worldwide. It's just as deadly cultural attacks on scientific and technological progress through environmentalism kill more slowly. I'm Barbara Boyd. I followed the attempt to impose a post-industrial new dark age on the United States ever since Paul Ehrlich published The Population Bomb in 1968. That was also when the drug-saturated counterculture and the New Left began their present attack on the United States. The Iranian Revolution and the end of nuclear power at 3 Mile Island, both in 1979, are chapters in the very same book. Today, I'll show you the biggest stories of the past week. They really haven't been covered elsewhere. First, we'll look at how the IRGC fits with globalism's new Dark Ages scheme. Then we'll see how President Trump's nuclear renaissance flips the entire script. I'll close by showing you the weapons Scott Bessent is using in both Iran and worldwide against what can only be called dope and terrorism, Inc. Now, in 1979, the Iranian Revolution was engineered by the British and American intelligence services. At the time, the Shah was engaged in turning Iran into a modern, sovereign, industrial nation-state powered by nuclear energy. The Iranian Revolution changed all of that, turning the Iranian economy into an export-dependent colony valued by the City of London and the modern British financial empire for its oil and gas, the petrodollars the Ayatollah invested in London real estate, and the IRGC's utility in proxy wars preventing any Middle Eastern nation from controlling the region's oil and gas. As a result, the IRGC death cult now controls upwards of 50% of the Iranian economy. The 2004 Iranian constitution allows it to control up to 80%. The IRGC's construction arm, Qatam al-Anabiyya, does build real things, dams, pipelines, oil refineries, and it employs significant parts of the population, but is run by a select group of IRGC insiders who report only to the Ayatollah. Banyad, supposedly tax-exempt religious charities around since the Shah's regime, exercise vast economic and political power, making parliament a sideshow. The largest one, Banyad Mostasavan, is worth billions, holding stakes in energy, mining, finance, and construction. Its holdings are supposed to benefit the poor, but in reality, it is controlled directly by the Ayatollah and used to finance the regime and its terrorist proxies. These structures, tax-exempt chartered entities reporting only to the Ayatollah, with their own companies and police and military offshoots are very similar to the way the British East India Company functioned within the old British Empire. A feudal state within a state holding the Iranian economy together, employing its people, and enforcing continued loyalty to the regime. Iran's current state is a product of the neo-feudalist worldwide environmentalist movement. It was a globalist effort to freeze or kill forward technological development worldwide in order to preserve the power of a small elite. In 1968, a small circle of elite industrialists founded the Club of Rome, pronouncing the absolute need for limits to economic growth. By 1975, Henry Kissinger had issued National Security Memorandum 200 as the national security strategy of the United States. It said that industrial development and the population growth which followed it in the Third World and elsewhere threatened the monopoly on scarce natural energy resources and therefore threatened the United States. Population control was urgent, development was effectively stopped. There is a straight line of development from NSM 200 to Mark Carney's Global Alliance for Net Zero, which the Biden administration fully supported and implemented. It attempted to restrict credit for energy development globally to only those green energy sources capable of powering small and really impotent states. Obviously, this picture is not what the media tells you about this conflict. You can find more of this analysis by subscribing to our free newsletter at PrometheanAction.com.
I recommend you watch the entire video since I played only the first third or so. You'll find the link in the show notes. The title is Donald Trump Wields Secret Weapons Against London and Iran. Barbara quickly listed how the globalists have used the religious terrorism and death cult mentality of the radical Muslim Brotherhood, which has been accomplished in part through narco-terrorism, and how they have limited industrial development and nuclear power plants, and how they have insisted on green energy, all as a means of global control. Part of what she referenced was the 1974 United States Government National Security Memorandum 200, created by Henry Kissinger. It references how rapid world population growth threatens United States security and economic interests. At the time, Kissinger worked for the United States government. However, in his own revelation, he was far more devoted to the British Empire globalists' agenda than he was America, and he was in fact one of their infiltrators to fundamentally change the United States from within. Now, let's pivot from Iran to Canada to explore how Canada is a current-day proxy of the globalist British Empire and how the spirit of the American Revolution is rising up in the people of Canada. As Susan Kokinda, also from Promethean Action, said, quote, "If you look at Canada as a sovereign nation, you'll miss the point," end quote. And by this she means Canada is poised by Mark Carney to be the first nation state under the rulership of the globalists. The people of Canada are not at all happy with the direction of their nation, exemplified by Alberta proposing secession from Canada, and other fringe groups echoing what President Trump quipped about Canada becoming the 51st state for the United States. Mark Carney was positioned by the globalists to replace Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister of Canada because the globalists didn't see the progress they wanted for acquiring Canada. Why Mark Carney? Because he was a very well-known member of the globalists, having served as the governor of the Bank of Canada and before that, as governor of the Bank of London. The city of London had been the center for the globalists, but now it is run through Davos, which is home for the world of financial and climate technocrats. It is the world that treats sovereign nations as things to be managed by the self-appointed elite. Okay, let's tie more of this together. The relationship between the United Kingdom and Iran has grown over the past 50 years, which is why Muslim immigration is so welcome in the UK and why the wealthier people of Iran have purchased so much land in the UK. Recall when Iran first began control of the Strait of Hormuz. Lloyd's of London stopped offering insurance for vessels transiting through the waters. That's when President Trump said the United States would offer coverage. Then, when things escalated and Iran opposed the United States, Trump sought help from NATO allies who rely heavily on Gulf energy flows, whereas the United States doesn't, none of which came to help, most notably the UK. From this, it became glaringly apparent the allies the United States has faithfully protected at the cost of American lives for decades upon decades was not valued. Again, this was the United States offering help to the UK and other nations that benefit from the transit via the Strait of Hormuz, not for the benefit of the United States. Then later, we learned that Mark Carney traveled to the 2026 NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey, and that during the trip he met with Turkish President Erdogan and Ukrainian President Zelensky to talk about defense industrial capacity support for Ukraine and a proposed multinational defense bank. Why is this an issue? For several reasons, including this was a diplomatic push for a separate Canada-led 9 countries to commit to global defense bank and separate industrial alignment outside traditional United States-led financial channels, raising strategic concerns for Washington, D.C. regarding allied fragmentation, financial leverage, and independent procurement architectures. Carney's meeting with Turkey also complicates ongoing American leverage regarding Turkish procurement and regional policies, not to mention Erdogan has acted as a key diplomatic facilitator, back-channel messenger, and regional balancer in negotiations between Iran and the United States. He has reportedly worked to de-escalate conflicts, prevent a wider regional war, and support a sustainable peace framework. Add to that President Trump's recent statement he was open to selling F-35 fighter jets to Turkey, despite the agreement with Saudi Arabia, without initially mentioning normalization with Israel as a condition, although Trump subsequently said the deal would not advance unless Saudi Arabia joined the Abraham Accords. How all of this fits with Erdogan's long-standing public admission of wanting to revive the Ottoman Empire's regional dominance, including a claim on Jerusalem itself, even calling for a united army of Islam to invade Israel? Only time will tell. Now, that bit of information caused me to look up end-time prophecies in Ezekiel 38 and 39, which you need to know about. I suggest you use both links in the show notes to learn more about this. So, while all of this is brewing, on July 28th, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was scheduled to arrive in Washington, D.C. to meet with President Trump regarding the United States war with Iran and the interests of Israel concerning that war. It is expected the two will discuss Israel's security needs while advancing Saudi normalization and the United States-backed pacts in Gaza and Lebanon involving Iran's proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. As you may know, President Trump refrained from striking Iran over Friday and Saturday and Sunday, July 24th, 25th, and 26th, the first time in 2 weeks. Trump said he halted strikes against Iran at Tehran's request, warning they would resume if the two sides failed to reach a new ceasefire deal, as published in a CNN article dated Monday, July 27th. And, as is so often the case, statements reported from Iran conflict. The same article said Iran's foreign ministry said there are no talks underway and that Tehran will never let the United States to determine the timing of war and peace. On July 27th, the Saudi Arabia defense minister had said it intercepted several drones targeting oil facilities launched from Iran-backed militias in Iraq. Also, Iranian officials have ramped up warnings and threats against Kiev after a Ukrainian long-range strike in the Caspian Sea reportedly hit vessels involved in military cargo shipments between Iran and Russia, causing an explosion on the Iranian ship that killed one sailor Saturday, July 25th. Apparently, Iran seeks reciprocal military support from Russia in exchange for supplying Russia with cost-effective kamikaze drones like the Shahed series, artillery, and ballistic missiles for use in Ukraine, Iran leverages Moscow for advanced weaponry, targeting intelligence and air defense systems to rebuild its own degraded military inventory. Well, my question at that was how Iran could manufacture drones only to learn the design relies on easily accessible commercial parts, decentralized local manufacturing, and international supply networks that bypass United States sanctions. Then I questioned why Iran would side with Russia, since the British Empire has told the whole world for decades Russia is the world's enemy. I'm convinced Iran has been a proxy of the British Empire. However, it turns out the operative term is has been. As I discussed with Alex Newman several podcast episodes back, the Muslim Brotherhood the British Empire supported seems to be turning on the British Empire, much like Frankenstein's monster turned on Dr. Frankenstein. To learn how the British Empire's control over Iran they once had changed, be sure to read the article published by the Globalists. You'll find the link in the show notes. Now, this leads me to wonder the threat the Iran/Russia relationship is to the United States and our efforts to bring peace to the Middle East that is currently being severely tested by Iran. Beyond Russia, the role of China in the whole matter of Iran is not clearly revealed. Some of this has to do with the art of war and not letting enemies know what is actually known. And of course, the mainstream media owned by the globalists want to see Trump fail at all costs. So unfortunately, understanding truth concerning China and Russia and Iran at this point is not an easy task for any of us who are on the outside. So, what does God say? His revelations are the only ones we really should heed. So I now bring you excerpts from various prophecies God has given since October 2025. And by the way, when you hear the term "my David," God is referring to President Trump. Regarding Iran, with prophecies given through Julie Green and Robin D. Bullock, we can expect Iran's government to fall. In fact, God has revealed many governments in the Middle East will fall and leaders will be removed. On January 12, 2026, Julie Green published that God said, quote, "Biblical types of events will intensify against those nations against me and my Israel and my United States. Iran, Iraq, Turkey, Kuwait, Afghanistan, Syria, Qatar, Jordan, the UAE, Bahrain, and Yemen. Watch many unprecedented things happen to each nation. Dubai will be hit financially with a tsunami wave of justice. The money that is there does not belong to those people who live there. So much fraud that it will lead back to the establishment and the world leaders. So much financial corruption has been hidden in the Middle East. Money trails will lead to so many politicians and global leaders. It is time for their dark money to be ripped from their hands. My children, the truth about oil in Saudi Arabia and the deal they struck with the deep state that made so many rich in the Middle East, something unprecedented and biblical will take place there. Their oil will run dry. Yes, I said their oil will run dry in the Middle East. I, the great I Am, is moving it elsewhere. You will hear about Israel and how they are overflowing with new oil, and that is one thing your enemies will seek to go after in Israel in the end of the end days. The military secrets these Arab nations and the establishment never wanted out will soon be revealed. Major secrets in Qatar and Afghanistan will explode everywhere. Many people will pay for the deals that were made against the United States and Israel. A well-known building will unexpectedly collapse. Pay attention to this location because many signs will be revealed that will help bring down the globalists. End quote. Regarding Ukraine, on December 25, 2025, Julie Green published, quote, "Woe to the enemies of Almighty God. I have warned you to stop seeking to destroy Israel and the United States of America. You have persisted in your efforts and you have hardened your hearts. The more you act against my nations, the more judgments will hit you instead. What you have been keeping secret in Ukraine that you are about to use against my nations will backfire on you. What you have been working on so hard to build and to keep under the radar, the weapon of mass destruction that Ukraine has shielded the world from, it will blow up in your faces. Your puppet Zelensky is going to be removed. With his removal, the truth will explode worldwide on the weapons, the viruses, the child sex trafficking. Everything that you've been working on in Ukraine is about to implode. Zelensky is being exposed, and he will keep being revealed no matter how hard you try to keep your puppet in his place and his mouth shut. You have failed, and you'll continue to fail. My David knows what secrets you have been hiding in Ukraine and that the United States has been funding it. He has stopped the flow of money, and now you are panicked trying to figure out how to finish this plan. But you won't be able to finish it because the truth is about to pour out everywhere against you. My judgment will hit you instead in a way you will never recover from. End quote. And this is just one small representation about what God has said regarding Ukraine. And regarding China, my children, you'll continue to see China be hit with one judgment after another. China's collapse will take place, and their government will pay for all the destruction and death they brought to their own citizens and what they have done to my United States to try to weaken it and to overtake it. China, your spies in my land are about to be exposed and evicted. China, you will see judgment hit your president that he will not survive. This judgment and the real truth of your financial markets and who really holds it up, how it's manipulated, the truth on how much the deep state in the United States keeps it going because the trade deals were made long ago that will totally benefit your nation of China, and those trade deals have been broken. And what held up your fake economy will now be brought down. My children who live in China, do not fear. I am here to protect, lead, and guide you. I will restore your freedoms, and everything that oppressed you will be dealt with. A new government will be brought in. China will continue to shake until every person in your government is dealt with. China will be hit also with unprecedented weather phenomenon. Apocalyptic is what they will also say in the news. I will say again, I am judging China like I did Egypt, and they will let my people go, says the Lord. Then, on Tuesday, July 28th of 2026, God had even more to say about China. Through Julie Green, he said, quote, "Something is about to happen to China's government. Not only will their president change, but their entire government will also change. My David's about to use a trump card that will crush the Chinese power over this nation. It will destroy the alliance the establishment has had with the Chinese government to take over this nation for a global government. Things will begin to fall like dominoes all around the world because things are changing that the globalists cannot stop." End quote. Regarding Russia, God said, quote, "What Russia has on Obama will also be revealed. What Obama's been hiding in Ukraine is something so massive that will also be linked to China, the globalists, including the WEF, the WHO, the Illuminati, the Bilderbergs, and other secret societies. My children, Russia is about to make a move that will help bring down the deep state in your nation. Russia has evidence that will bring down Obama and the swamp rats to their knees. This evidence has been hidden and closely protected. The establishment has gone after Putin and tried to get this information back into their hands, and they have failed. The truth of what is really going on between Russia and Ukraine will also be revealed." End quote. Lastly, and also from the July 28, 2026 prophecy through Julie Green, God had this to say about the globalists, quote, "Something significant is going to take place in Rome to expose the globalists, not only those who have been hiding there, but how they use this location against the United States. What's underground in Rome that affects the world, how Rome is another hub for many things the globalists do under the radar. Children will be discovered and will be freed from the trafficking that happens in Rome. These predators all over the world, they have no idea of the devastation and destruction that's coming their way because of what they've done to the little children. I have judged the Roman cities before because of their perversion, and it's happening again in unprecedented ways. Many child traffickers in Europe will be arrested and children will be saved. My children, the war against trafficking is growing in intensity, and so is the war against the drug cartels. More will be arrested. More of your enemies will die to save the world and this nation from what the globalists were planning next. Explosive documents and proof will come out on the next pandemic. Yes, you will see how the World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum are still planning to release another virus like COVID on the world stage. But my hand is against them. They will not get another pandemic. No, I have said, let my people go, and nothing your enemies plan will stop my will from this world and for you, my children. Get ready. A flood of truth and my glory is coming out that will annihilate your enemies that you see now and soon will not see any more, says the Lord of hosts. End quote. Again, these are just a small sampling of what God has been revealing so his children can know the truth and not succumb to fear based on what we see. And I share only portions of prophecies specific to the topics I covered today. God has also said much about the imminent accountability regarding the 2020 elections, January 6th, and all other election fraud, about the removal of leaders who are not legitimately in office, about drug trafficking, about many of the Middle East nations, and much, much more. You can use the link in the show notes to read more of the published prophecies by Julie Green. My weekly podcasts are running a little longer these days because of the increased activity in our world and God's gracious increase of prophecies to help us stay focused on what He is saying and what He is doing, believing in Him instead of being fearful of what we see and hear the enemy is doing. I hope you'll join me next week where I will again seek to help us get God's perspective on world events. I'm really excited to tell you that Donna Rigney Sagan has agreed to be my guest for the first time. I'll be interviewing her early August and be able to actually bring that program to you mid-month or so. And as always, I have other invitations out to people who are yet to confirm. So I look forward to you meeting my guests in the near future. Please keep all things in prayer and make a point every day of decreeing and declaring what God reveals. As we all use our spiritual weapons to partner with God and unite to call down the works of the enemy, we will experience the spiritual synergy and see even greater impact all over the world. Now I ask you to please listen to my closing announcements and to take advantage of the many goods and services I bring you in an effort to at least cover the costs of this program. If you like what you hear from me with this podcast, I highly recommend my book series, my award-winning blog, and consider signing up for my certificate course in apologetics. My aim with that course is to help people learn how not only to use apologetics to share truth with others, but to help Christian leaders incorporate apologetics into their respective ministries so more Christians are learning how to share their faith. You can learn more by using the link in the show notes. For now, I offer my weekly podcasts, my blog, and bi-monthly e-newsletter at no cost. And certainly I have hard costs associated with doing all I do. If you've been blessed by my work and would like to help my work reach others, why not consider partnering with me? For as little as $10 a month, you can become a partner. Then together we can reach even more people for Jesus. Simply visit my Pamela Christian Ministries homepage and then click on the Give button at the top menu bar. Or if you prefer, you can go directly to the Give page using the link in the show notes. To become a partner, you can use my PayPal or Venmo account, but you will also see other ways you can support my work on that page. Whether you choose to become a monthly partner, give a one-time donation, purchase my books and products from my web store, or support my affiliate sponsors, anything you can do to help me continue this work would be greatly appreciated. And as always, your prayers and telling others about me and my ministry work is much needed. When it comes to my selection of affiliate sponsors, I first look for Christian-owned and operated businesses, and I make a point of personally using the products or services so I can fully endorse them. I seek sponsors that offer products or services you can get via the internet worldwide, and I specifically consider what is common to most people universally. So you'll find health, beauty, and wellness products through Dr. Zelenko's Z-Stack supplements and from QE Strong. Dr. Zelenko's Z-Stack supplements are truly amazing and are available to my listeners for a 5% discount per purchase, or a 10% discount for a monthly subscription using the promo code FTLB. You may have heard my interview with Rob Renee about QE Strong. Discover the benefits of quantum energy to overcome all sorts of ailments. Visit QEstrong.com and use the promo code FTLB at checkout to receive your discount. Then, my newest affiliate I'm really excited to bring you is Q Streaming. That's CUE Streaming Television. People with United States addresses can get over 3,000 channels, including live TV with streaming television without a contract. Get all of your local networks and favorite movie and sports and pay-per-view channels for about half of what cable costs. See the video promo link in the show notes to learn more. Affiliate sponsors only provide financial support to me when you purchase what they offer. So before you support Amazon or any other retailer, if I offer what you're looking for, please purchase through me. When it comes to special occasions, birthdays, or Christmas gifts, consider my books, jewelry, CDs, and more from my web store or any of the affiliate goods and services I offer. When you purchase from my web store, be sure to use the promo code TRUTH, TRUTH, to receive a 20% discount. Again, you'll find all the links in the show notes. If you like the content and resource material I bring you with this podcast, you'll find much more by connecting with me through my blog. In fact, my blog has been awarded 2 unsolicited awards for Christian content. And I'm also very active on social media. I can cover much more on social media than I can with this weekly podcast. And if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to my complimentary bi-monthly e-newsletter. I offer encouragement, special offers, and one of my signature recipes with each and every edition. Yep, I'm a foodie and I love to entertain, which is why Faith, Family, Friends, and Food is a bonus segment of my bi-monthly e-newsletter. To receive even more, please be sure to check out my dedicated podcast listeners page, Beyond the Podcast. Here's where we can connect exclusively and you can download complimentary devotionals, resources, and more. On that page, I also ask you to help me learn more about you and what you want by completing the form visible once you scroll down that page. And something that is very easy for you to do and would mean a lot to me is for you to rate, subscribe, or comment on this podcast according to what your preferred listening platform allows. You know how it works. The more likes and subscriptions to this podcast, the more opportunity we have to expand the listening audience. And that means we can reach more people with the gospel message of Jesus while helping people learn how to better apply their Christian faith. I hope you'll join me next week and tell your friends and family to listen right here on Faith to Live By, where we learn how to gain spiritual victory over life's issues. Until next week, I'm Pam Christian, asking you to remember Christ died for us. The least we can do is live for Him.